The stone walls of the city rise high to ensure that every movement is monitored and controlled. White dust covers the empty plazas where public life is managed through strict and constant surveillance. The iron gates remain shut at night to prevent any unauthorized entry or exit from the district. Patrols move through the narrow alleys with a rhythmic pace that signals the presence of absolute authority. Merchants display their goods in the markets while following the rigid codes of the Imperial Inspector's office. The streets remain clean and orderly because the population understands the consequences of any public disruption. Water flows through the stone channels, but the people drink in a silence that defines the city. City guards stand at every intersection to observe the behavior of those who pass through the squares. Public squares are designed for visibility so that no person can remain hidden from the state's gaze. The laws of the administration are posted on every corner to remind the subjects of their obligations. Daily life follows a predictable pattern dictated by the ringing of the bells and the official decrees. Authority is represented by the heavy wooden doors of the government buildings that never seem to open. The tax collectors move from house to house, recording the assets of every single family in silence. Everything appears stable because the system is designed to remove any potential source of social friction. Order is the primary objective of the state, and it is achieved through the total regulation of space. Public punishment blocks are placed in the center of the market as a permanent reminder of law. Informants sit in the shadows of the coffee houses to record the private conversations of the residents. Men lower their eyes when the heavy cavalry of the guard passes through the crowded city gates. Neighbors avoid speaking to one another to ensure that no word is ever used against their families. The inspection of records is a daily routine that keeps the population in a state of compliance. People vanish from their homes during the night, leaving no trace of their existence in the records. The state does not explain why certain houses are suddenly boarded up and left to decay slowly. Attendance at public ceremonies is mandatory to prove the loyalty of every individual to the central throne. The smell of vinegar and wood smoke hangs over the squares where the state performs its justice. Every traveler must present a written permit to cross the bridges that lead into the city center. Suspicion is the currency of the street, where every stranger is viewed as a potential government agent. The walls of the prisons are built deep into the rock to swallow those who deviate slightly. No one asks about the empty chairs at the communal tables in the dark and quiet taverns. The records of the city are updated every hour to reflect the current status of the population. A single gesture of hesitation is enough to bring the immediate attention of the armed municipal patrols. The city thrives on the labor of the silent, who work to avoid the notice of inspectors. Spaces once used for gathering are now patrolled to prevent the assembly of more than 3 men. Punishment is a spectacle that requires the presence of the entire community to witness the state's power. Families pay their debts with a mechanical precision that leaves no room for error or for mercy. The fear of the law is more effective than the edge of the sword in maintaining peace. Parents teach their children to walk softly and never to speak of what they see in streets. Survival is a quiet process of adapting to the shifting requirements of the local and central bureaus. Men choose to work in the fields far from the city to escape the constant watchful eyes. The interior courtyards of the houses are the only places where a person might breathe without fear. Loyalty is measured by the number of years a man has remained invisible to the state's records. No one dares to write a letter that might be intercepted by the scribes of the administration. The rhythm of the city is a machine that processes human lives into a series of taxes. Silence is preserved in the markets, even when the crowds are at their most dense and active. People walk with a determined focus to avoid the gaze of the soldiers standing on the walls. The state requires that every person belongs to a registered group to ensure total social accountability. The loss of a permit is equivalent to the loss of a life in this administrative desert. Every movement outside the city walls is recorded by the scouts who watch from the high hills. Endurance is not a choice, but a necessity for those who wish to see another gray sunrise. The city operates without the need for chains because the fear is already inside every living mind. A knock on the door at midnight is the most common sound in the wealthy urban districts. Individuals learn to exist within the narrow margins left by the ever-increasing weight of the legal code. The landscape is dotted with fortresses that serve as the nodes of a permanent and dark net. Wealth does not offer protection from the suspicion of the men who manage the imperial tax rolls. The sun sets on a city where every light must be extinguished by the third evening bell. No rebellion occurs because the population is too exhausted by the demands of constant and total vigilance. The great mosques and palaces remain standing, while the families who built them are slowly forgotten. The stone bridges carry the weight of new generations who follow the same paths of quiet submission. Historical records list the grain and the gold, but they do not mention the lives of men. The architecture of the city outlasts the names of the people who once walked through its shadows. The city survived, but ordinary people lived only by accepting fear as permanent and completely unavoidable.